Hello, I'm Jeannie Caldwell, and welcome to In His Presence. You'll remember her as a founding member of Point of Grace. Today, Terry Jones is here to share her brand new solo album, I Will Speak, with us today. Welcome, Terry.
Thank you.
So glad to have you
Thank you,
here.
Miss
I've
Jeannie.
just listened to your music, and I'm just looking so forward to interviewing you.
Thank you. I'm
So
excited to be here.
let's talk about the beginning of your music career. Why did you begin to sing?
Well, I started singing when I was little. I think the first time I sang was I was 6 or 7 in church, and my mom played piano and sang a little solo, Scared to Death. And then I ended up getting in a little choir called the Sunshine Kids, and this was in California where I grew up. And in about second grade was when I started doing that, and I did that for 5 or 6 years, and that's when I found that music connected to people. And I started to get little solos within that choir, and we did little musicals, and I realized that when I sang, that people were drawn in. And I was a really shy little girl, and so that was sort of my way of conversating with people or connecting with them. And so I think I realized that even at a very young age that there was power in music, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And so that's kind of when I started singing. And then, fast forward, and high school was in everything I could be in, and college, everything I could be in singing-wise, and I did pageants, and I did everything. And then Point of Grace started when I was in college, and that kind of took it to a whole nother level of just national, recognition and people kind of knowing who we were.
Exactly. Well, you were raised by parents who had a strong faith. Why was that important?
Well, I think, for every child, the way that you have been brought up is foundational to who you are, and we're all created the way we're going to be when we're born, but, your environment has a lot to do with who you become. And for me, just learning the disciplines of, being grounded in the Word of God and finding wise counsel in, wise people in my life, and prayer and Bible study, and getting to have a community of believers around me that held me accountable and kept me, in touch with what the Lord was wanting for my life. That was just foundational to, I think, who I am today.
Wonderful. Well, your path led you to Ouachita Baptist University and creating Point of Grace. And how did that time in your life shape you?
Well, Point of Grace was an amazing, incredible season that I look on with great fondness. 14 years of my life I devoted to traveling the country and making records. I think we made 10 or 11 records during that time. And, getting to meet and speak with and see people around the nation was really incredible. And, it shaped a lot of who I am today. I tend to be naturally more of an introverted type of person, and so the road was difficult for me in that way because it is such an extrovert's world. You're meeting new people all the time, you're out in the middle of strangers, and you're having to kind of carry the show. And so it was difficult for me in that. And so I think I've had to learn how to kind of compensate for the fact that I am more of an introvert thinker and dreamer type personality. And so, Point of Grace was good and challenging in that way for me.
That's wonderful. Well, talk about the success you all experienced and the whirlwind that your life became.
Well, it really didn't start to be a whirlwind until about a year or so into it, when we went to a music competition in Colorado, the Estes Park Music Competition. And we won that and met a guy that we eventually signed Word Records with, and his name is John Mays. And once we signed with Word Records is when things went on a national level, where it had been very local and sort of manageable and a little bit easier, even though we were still doing 300 dates a year. I mean, we were on the road constantly. It got a little more hectic when then all of a sudden, okay, now we're going to Seattle and Florida and New York and, Canada and all over the place. And so the traveling schedule got more intense. And then just the demands, we were on the radio now, and so there was more recognition. There were more people coming to our concerts. There was more accountability with that. It began to feel, like you said, a whirlwind, just a lot of activity constantly going. It was, to me, a bit of a 24-hour job. Because you really never turn off completely from thinking of what's next and what you need to be doing and how you did that and how this went and.
Now, were you married at that time?
I was married. Let's see. I got married in 1994, and we started the group in 1990. So Chris and I had been dating kind of off and on a little bit for those 4 years. And then once we got married, that's really when my heart began. A little piece of me just wanted to just be home and be with him and not have such a schedule to keep up with. Now, we managed it and it was fine, and in some ways was kind of good. We never were tired of each other. We always wanted to be together when we were. We made it work. It was when we started to have children that got even more complicated.
Well, why did you decide to trade tour bus life for family life?
Well, the tour bus, though it may seem very glamorous, is not so glamorous. It's a hard life. I mean, you're not sleeping in your own bed. You're sleeping in the bus. And for me, I had 3 children traveling with me everywhere. Wow. And nannies. And, it just became more complicated. And then my oldest started kindergarten. And so, we go on a tour for 60 days. Well, I take him out of school. So I was basically homeschooling him in the day and doing concerts at night and taking care of my newborn and my 4-year-old. And, it was hard to pull off. And then it progressed to the point where he needed to be home for school. And so I would have a nanny at home. I would have a nanny on the road. I'd be trying to juggle my husband. I'd be having, and it really,
difficult.
It got to the point where I was like, wait a minute, why am I doing this? I think it would be easier if I just kind of stopped having to tell everybody else what to do, and I just went home and did it. And that's where my heart was anyway, was to just be with my babies at home and not waking up on a tour bus.
That's wonderful. Well, let me see what we've got here. What are some of the most important lessons you learned during that transition time?
I think probably for me personally, it was about obedience. And, it was a hard decision to leave Point of Grace. It was heart-wrenching and a traumatic time of my life to leave something that I had built up and that the Lord had blessed and had given to me. And so it felt a bit like rejecting what I didn't really want to reject, but I knew that I was pulled to come home. And so it was an act of obedience, and it didn't mean it was easy. It didn't mean it was without struggle. It was hard, really hard. But I think just me learning to discern God's voice in my life has been something that I need and that I desire, and that I have not regretted listening to what He's calling me to.
That's wonderful. Well, it's been almost 10 years since your last tour. Why did you decide to create a solo album?
Well, the way the solo album came about is odd. People asked me for several years after I retired, are you going to do your own thing, or are you going to be singing around? And honestly, it was not my desire to do that. I mean, I really just wanted to be a mom and to try to have somewhat of a normal life. For the first year, I said no to everything, every magazine article, every television station, every, singing or speaking opportunity, just because I needed a year to just sort of not be burnt out and just, detox sort of, and just get my feet on the ground and learn what this new life would be. And honestly, about 3 or 4 years ago, I went through a very difficult personal time for me. Just struggling in life and just learning how to juggle marriage and children and my own self and learning from the Lord. And so really out of that difficult time, I began to write. I began to journal. And it wasn't songs at first, and then it became that way. And as I would write more, they became, my frustrations turned into some beautiful lines and almost poetic. And so I began to sort of have these songs coming to me and these melodies coming in my head, and I'd be driving down the road, and all of a sudden I'd sing a melody, and I'd scratch down the words, or at home getting ready in the bathroom, and that's where my songs were coming from, just random places or at church or any moment that I had space where it was quiet and the Lord could sort of speak to me. And so I had all these scribbles of paper everywhere, and I combined them all and began to write songs. And that's really kind of how this came about. And I thought, here I have 7 or 8 songs. I guess I could put them on a record and just see how that goes, what that would be like for me as a solo person. I've never done that before. It was a big act of faith for me. It is very vulnerable to put your own music out there. And so that's just been a part of my journey, part of what I felt like I needed to do and wanted to do, and got with an incredible producer, Nathan Knuckles. And so just made a record that I'm really proud of.
We want to hear it. Well, let's watch Terry perform the title track, I Will Speak.
They can see every single part of me, and Father, let my life proclaim the goodness of your holy name. Remind me, Lord, to tell them true. Remember all the good you do, all the good you do, and I will speak of your goodness. We speak of goodness, kindness, love. We know that we do not deserve the kind of grace you freely serve. We know that we cannot display the power of your holy name, of your holy name. But we will speak of your goodness, and we will speak of your love, and we will speak of your kindness, patience, grace that is enough. We will speak of your mercies new to us each day. We will speak of your faithful, gracious power from above. And we will speak of your love. We will speak, yeah. We will speak. We will speak, yeah. We will speak.
This isn't a Christian album, so to speak, but how do you describe the songs before you sing them?
Well, there are a lot of songs on the record that are just about my family. There's one to my husband, there's one to my children. And I'm just not a fan of labeling things. I think however music hits you it's for the person listening to interpret what kind of music it is to them. And, you know, for me, I am a Christian and I do believe in the Lord. And when I sing, I feel a connection to Him through my music. But my desire is for other people to feel a connection to Him through my music. And so I don't like labeling things as Christian or not Christian. It's really a record about life. It's a record about who I am, and it's sort of just my life on an album.
Sounds wonderful. I've got one of your CDs, and I'm going to go home and listen to it.
Good.
I got that one right there.
Good.
So, debuting a solo album had to be a little scary. What were some of the questions that ran through your head?
I think as a woman, I struggle with comparing myself to, there are much more amazing artists, musicians, singers, songwriters than I. And so I think I had to come to the place where I realized that though great they may be, God has not given them what He's given to me.
That's right.
And that I have been uniquely given what He's given to me, and no matter how great or small and whatever scale I want to measure myself against, it is my honest effort at pleasing Him and at honoring Him. And so whatever that is enough. And so I just had to struggle through that and figure that out in my own life. And it's not something anybody could tell me oh, you're good enough. It just kind of had to be my personal journey and just God refining me and who He kind of desired for me to be.
That's right. That's wonderful. Well, let's talk about the song, Lord Have Mercy, in a nutshell. What was in your heart when you recorded this song?
Well, this song is the only one that is the way that it is on the record. We actually, it's a cover song, which means somebody else wrote it. And we did this song, 2 or 3 years ago at church. And actually, Aaron, who's playing guitar with me on which you guys have been watching, his name is Aaron Williams. He is a worship pastor at my church, and he helped me write a bunch of the songs. But 2 or 3 years ago, we sang this song with another one of our worship pastors, Bruce Clinton, at church. And it just had an impact on me. I think it just is not very often that I feel like Christian music or even worship music is real enough for where I am. But this song was that for me. I felt like it was a contrite heart. I felt like it was, not acting like we're something when we're not. I felt like there was no pretentiousness, and there was no pretending in it, and it just felt like a real raw song. And so anyway, I have loved it since we've done it. And so it was always one that I kept in my head that I wanted to do. And actually, Aaron sings it on the record with me and another of our worship pastors, Drew Klein. And so it's special to me because it has a bit of home in it, and it has some of my people from church, on it.
Well, let's watch Lord Have Mercy.
Jesus, I've forgotten the words that you have spoken, the promises that burned within my heart have now wounded. With a doubting heart I follow the paths of earthly wisdom. Forgive me for my unbelief, renew the fire again. Lord, have mercy. Christ, have mercy. Lord, have mercy on me. Lord, have mercy. Christ, have mercy. Lord, have mercy on me. I have built an altar where I worship things of men, and I have taken journeys that have drawn me far from you. And now I am returning to your mercies ever flowing, and pardon my transgressions. Help me love you again. Lord, have mercy. Christ, have mercy. Lord, have mercy on me. Lord, have mercy. Christ, have mercy. Lord, have mercy on me. I have longed to know you and your tender mercies, like a river of forgiveness, ever flowing without end. I bow my heart before you in the goodness of your presence, your grace forever shining like a beacon in the night. Lord, have mercy. Christ, have mercy. Lord, have mercy on me. Lord, have mercy. Christ, have mercy. Lord, have mercy on me.
Well, what do you want the end result of this album to be?
It's a good question. I think I want people to connect in our humanness. I think I want people to see just that I'm a real person with struggles, just like everybody else, and but that I obeyed what he put on me, and maybe that's encouraging to other people, and that would be my heart.
Sure. Well, there's a line in the song, "Oh Great Mystery," that says, "How can I do anything but fall at your feet?" Why did you write that?
Well, that song came from after reading the Bible. As a matter of fact, this Bible with a group of women in Little Rock. And after reading the Bible, I think we were all in awe of just how he could make this book with so many different people being inspired, and how it all comes together, and how the Old Testament connects to the New Testament, and just the mystery of it all is awe-inspiring. I mean, and reading it causes even more reverence for me. And so just the feeling of, how can I do anything but fall at his feet? Knowing what I know now from having read every word, just how majestic and powerful, and there aren't even words to describe what and who he is. But that's where that line came from.
Wow. Well, we don't have time to watch that song, but you can listen to it if you'd like to purchase Terry's album, I Will Speak, is available on iTunes and Amazon.com. Talk about the talented people who collaborated on this project.
Well, Nathan Knuckles produced it for me, and I executive produced it, and then we recorded at Chris Tomlin's cabin, which is his studio. Incredible musicians from Nashville played on it, and Nathan Knuckles is an incredible producer. He actually was on the road with us with his wife in a group called Watermark, and we sort of introduced them to Christian music through Point of Grace. They opened for us, and he played keys for us, and so I've known Nathan and Christy for 15 years at least. And so when thinking about doing the record, I felt like it would be a good connection. He had produced for Point of Grace before, and I just really love both of them. And Christy Knuckles is an incredible singer-songwriter. And so that's sort of how it kind of came about, just very naturally. And I asked him if he would be interested, and he said yes, and so
here you are.
Here I am.
Well, for more information on Terry and her ministry, just log on to her website at terrylangjones.com. You have any last thoughts?
Just thank you for this opportunity, and it's a blessing to meet you, and I appreciate it.
I'm so glad. I'm glad to meet you, too.
Thank you.
Well, I just want you to know I love you, and Jesus loves you, and always remember, in His presence is fullness of joy. Bye-bye.
Thank you for joining us today for In His Presence. You can write Jeannie Caldwell at Post Office Box 22007, Little Rock, Arkansas 72221, or email her at jeanniecaldwell@vtntv.com. To order a DVD of today's program, call 1-800-264-2525 and ask for the offer number on the screen. Join us next time as we meet in His presence.